Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. So today we're tackling something I think pretty much all of us have dealt with at some point. What on earth do you do when you're perfectly crafted, totally foolproof, plan A for life, just completely falls apart? Seriously, if you're out there trying to navigate this chaotic job market, maybe rethinking your entire major or just hitting that classic quarter-life crisis where you feel, well, wildly unqualified for whatever's next, you are absolutely not alone. To figure out how to pivot, we're actually going to look at a surprisingly relatable ancient guide. We're talking about the biblical figure Gideon. Okay, let's just dive right into this. You see the quote up there? It totally shatters this illusion we tend to have of these fearless, untouchable ancient warriors. This description is actually from the modern Refuel Bible zine, and it hits the nail on the head. I mean, forget the bold, muscle-bound superhero rushing into battle without a second thought. Gideon actually starts out as a guy who is completely paralyzed by self-doubt, stuck in a really terrible situation, and entirely unsure of his own potential.
Section 1, a runt stuck in a rut.
So here's the paradox. What kind of mighty warrior hides from his enemies? In the book of Judges, an angel of the Lord actually appears to Gideon and literally greets him with the title, Mighty Warrior. But there is this massive, glaring disconnect between that divine, hyped-up title and Gideon's deeply anxious everyday reality. Because, let's be real, he does not feel mighty. In fact, he feels the exact opposite.
Just to paint the picture, when the angel actually finds him, Gideon is literally hiding in a wine press. He's secretly threshing wheat so these oppressive local raiders won't steal his food. It's basically the ancient equivalent of hiding in the break room to avoid your boss, right? And when he gets called a mighty warrior, his immediate reaction is essentially, wait, who? Me? My clan is the absolute weakest, and I am literally the least important person in my entire family. For anyone out there dealing with massive imposter syndrome today, Gideon's starting point is just incredibly validating.
Section 2. The need for reassurance. Now, what's really interesting here is how Gideon repeatedly asks God for miraculous signs. He does this whole test using a fleece of wool, just to prove he's actually going to win. And if you look at history, different groups have viewed this in wildly different ways. Early Christian writers, like Ambrose, read it as an allegory for Jews and Gentiles. Fast forward a bit, and groups like the Gideon's International saw it as a story about a man trying to be strictly obedient. But modern youth texts, like Refuel, look at it through a much more human lens. They see an insecure guy who just needs a little proof. It's not this massive lack of faith. It's honestly just a deeply human need for divine reassurance when you're staring down the terrifying unknown. And honestly, that is exactly why Gideon endures as such a powerful figure for us today. Despite all of his insecurities, or maybe actually because of them, he is a highly practical role model. He shows us that real courage isn't about the absence of fear or anxiety. You absolutely do not have to be fearless to do something great. You just have to be willing to take the next step. And hey, it is perfectly okay to need some reassurance along the way. Section 3. The ultimate support system. Let's set the scene a bit regarding the immense cultural pressure Gideon was under. Believe it or not, Gideon's own family, led by his dad, Joash, originally participated in local idolatry. Like, they literally had a pagan altar to the Canaanite god Baal sitting right on their property. So God's very first command to Gideon wasn't to go out and fight some massive army. It was to clean up his own backyard first. And Gideon actually takes this huge risk and destroys his family's altar. Naturally, the townspeople are absolutely furious. They literally demand Gideon's life. But then, check out this incredible response from his dad. Instead of joining the angry mob or punishing his kid, Joash actually steps right in front of the crowd and defends him. He essentially says, look, if Baal is really a god, let him fight his own battles. This defiant defense from Joash marks a complete transformation. And it's just such a powerful reminder of how crucial a strong support system is when you finally decide to go against the grain and face the wrath of the crowd in your own life. Section 4. Losing your plan A. So Gideon's world is about to get completely turned upside down. His original plan A made total logical sense, right? Gather 32,000 troops, equip them with standard swords and shields, and go to war. But God essentially steps in and tells him, yeah, that's way too many. And he whittles Gideon's army down to just 300 men. And the new strategy? No swords at all, just trumpets, torches, and terracotta clay pots. That's plan B. I mean, for anyone whose career path or life trajectory has suddenly been stripped of its traditional resources or funding, this is a highly relatable moment of absolute panic. It's the ultimate forced pivot. But here's the thing.
Gideon doesn't quit. He pivots. He is terrified, for sure. But he embraces this bizarre, stripped-down method anyway. He turns to his 300 guys and says, "Watch me and do what I do." In the dead of night, they smash the clay pots, reveal these blazing torches, and blow their trumpets. It's so wildly unexpected that the enemy camp falls into total, absolute chaos, and they actually turn on each other. Gideon pulls off an astonishing victory, not with some traditional battle plan, but with sheer, unorthodox courage.
And the crazy thing is, Gideon's bizarre victory really isn't an isolated incident. When we zoom out and look at history through this text, we see this broader theme of massive successes happening in highly unlikely ways, right when traditional resources are totally gone. Think about it. A 500-year-old man builds a giant boat. A baby is saved in a floating river basket and grows up to be a prince. A shepherd boy uses a literal rock to take down a massive military giant. And here, 300 men with clay pots win an entire war. So what's the takeaway for us? Honestly, don't cry over your lost swords and shields. Start looking for your torches and trumpets.
Section 5. The Trap of Success.
Now we have to talk about the aftermath because it gets a little messy. After this massive victory, the people actually try to make Gideon their king. Now he correctly rejects this dynastic rulership, reminding them that God is their only ruler. But then, in his very next breath, he makes a really shocking pivot. He asks the people for the spoils of war to manufacture what's called an ephod. An ephod is a sacred metal ritual garment that was strictly reserved for the high priest. So by making one for himself, Gideon is arrogantly seizing religious leadership right after he just rejected civil leadership. And just to put this into perspective, to build this disastrous object, the people hand over 1,700 shekels of golden rings that they stripped from their defeated enemies. The sheer weight and wealth of all this gold really highlights the massive magnitude of Gideon's deviation. I mean, think about how far he's drifted from those humble beginnings, when he was just an anxious guy hiding in that wine press.
The ancient text actually signals this tragic twist to the reader through some very specific linguistic clues. For instance, the phrase golden rings is incredibly rare in this context. It's used here, and it's also used back in Exodus when Aaron builds the highly idolatrous golden calf. On top of that, the text says the people warred after the ephod, which is a really powerful, intense word used elsewhere to condemn spiritual betrayal. And finally, it tells us it became a snare to Gideon. It's a really stark, sobering reminder that sudden success and having lots of clout can sometimes be just as dangerous to our character as our initial insecurities.
Section 6. Courage for Today's Battles.
Let's bring this all together. Back in the 1st century, a Jewish writer known as Pseudo-Philo actually rewrote parts of Gideon's story to highlight a very specific lesson. In his version, Gideon is told that the true measure of a chosen hero isn't about raw physical strength or having a ton of clout. It's actually about goodness, uprightness, and humility. And I love that because it means you don't need a flawless resume, you don't need the perfect LinkedIn profile, and you definitely don't need bulletproof confidence to be the exact right person for the job.
If you take away just one single thing from this entire explainer, please let it be this. Losing your plan A in life is not a failure. It is entirely possible that the stripped-down, completely unexpected, and seemingly inadequate situation you are dealing with right now is exactly the setup required for you to achieve something great. Because in God's eyes, Plan B was Plan A all along.
Which leaves us with one final thought to ponder. You've just seen how a timid, super anxious guy who started out hiding in a wine press, armed with literally nothing but clay pots and a supportive dad, ended up reshaping history. So if your current life disruptions are actually just the setup for an incredible, unexpected Plan B, what unlikely battle are you ready to step up and fight today?